All right, welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel for this special news update. Today is Tuesday, March 29th, 2022. Got a lot of action going on today with the sun. And yesterday we had a strong M-class flare that shot out and made an impressive looking halo. Well, it's not done. We have seen 16 more blasts since yesterday's original M-class flare from AR, I believe 2975, and I'll show you that here in a minute. And it is just a cluster in the northern part of our sun right now. Sunspot numbers coming in at 125. We've hit as high as 141. That is just a anomaly at this point. We're not seeing this consistently, so no, we're not at the max or anything like that, but we are seeing a flurry of activity. And this sun has quickly ignited. Just from the other night, from when we went live, we were talking about two sunspot regions with a sunspot number of 27. That's jumped up 100 in the last 4 days. So we have seen the sun really crank it up this week. But also, this is nothing new. We have seen the sun go in spurts up and down. Lots of activity, quiet back down for a little bit. So still working its way towards the maximum, but nonetheless, we are seeing multiple sunspot regions today. At 125 is the smooth sunspot number right now. Also, I want to point out, I didn't change the cosmic radiation there. I do apologize, but right now it is currently sitting at the 6.9% rate. It was as high as 7.5 just several days ago, but we have had several days of off and on CMEs and increases of solar wind, and that will bring down the cosmic radiation dosage rates. Obviously, when solar wind affects our magnetosphere, it brushes away the remaining cosmic radiation that's hovering around our planet's orbit, and it does lower the dosage rates temporarily as that storm or that solar wind is streaming in. But we've got lots of action to look at. This is not going to be any kind of short-term situation. Today's the 29th. They expect this storm on the 31st, and that is a G2 geomagnetic storm warning. Now, yesterday's solar flare, the M-class, did cause some shortwave radio issues. In fact, let's go back to, I believe that was the 27th of March when that happened. Let's double check. It might have been 28th. Well, 27th is just talking about the impressive sized sunspot. It is the 28th. Okay. I'll go ahead and share the screen with you guys, because this first CME that hit yesterday was really something I should have talked about yesterday, and my apologies. But folks, we had a pretty strong flare. It was an M-class, but the blast propelled a solar tsunami through the sun's atmosphere. You could see it ripping away from the blast site in this movie from the SDO. The tsunami was radioactive. Its rippling leading edge beamed a radio waves towards Earth. This person here in this article says he received a fantastic solar radio burst at 56 megahertz. There's another person who also recorded radio burst with this flare. Let's see if we have the link for it. It does not appear it's working. Oh, there it is. Here is the audio, I think. No, they don't have the audio. That's too bad. I thought we were going to get to hear some radio burst. But anyway, that's pretty impressive from an M-class flare. So what does that mean exactly? Well, ironically, while the sun was turning itself into a temporary radio beacon, it simultaneously wiped out some radio transmissions on Earth. A pulse of X-rays from the flare ionized the top of the atmosphere over Africa, causing a short radio wave blackout. I mean, the entire continent of Africa was affected by this. Aviators, mariners, and ham radio operators in the area may have noticed fading and other unusual propagation effects at frequencies below 30 megahertz. Energetic protons accelerated by the flare tsunami are now peppering Earth's magnetosphere and causing S1 class radiation storm. That's right. Our planet's magnetic field is funneling some of these particles towards the pole, where a second type of radio blackout is underway. A polar cap absorption event, basically is what that's called. Airplanes flying over these regions may find their shortwave radios will not work during the transit. Lots going on, right? Yesterday, the short signals, and then since this initial solar flare, yesterday, from AR-29, and let's zoom in just a little bit more, folks. Check out, you could see the release. So this is what we're expecting the G2 storm from, this eruption right here. The problem is that we have more than just one of these. Let's check today's front page here at spaceweather.com, and we have the geomagnetic storm, but multiple multiple CMEs are heading towards Earth from AR-2975. It's been busy since yesterday has exploded more than 17 times. That's 11 C-class flares and 6 M-class flares. Now, this is clearly the most action we have seen from the sun at one particular time. So there's theories out there that this Terminator event has happened, and shortly after the Terminator event, we see a uptick in solar activity. The question remains, is that real? Is that happening right now? And also, if that is happening, does that mean we hit into a deeper minimum that starts earlier than predicted? Lots to think about. The last 2 solar cycles, each minimum got deeper and deeper. So why wouldn't solar cycle 25 follow that trend, especially if we know we're heading into a modern grand solar minimum? Just a lot of stuff going on, folks. And look, we are not in solar max. So to have 17 solar flares thrown at us, weak ones. Now, mind you, C-class is nothing crazy. M-class, they'll do a little bit of eruptions, or interruptions, I should say. But still, 6 of them in the last 24 hours. And we're only expecting a G2. Multiple waves of CMEs will be heading towards Earth. And let's check out. Just look at this. One. That was today. Here's one on the 28th. Here's another one on the 28th. Here is another one coming at the end on the 29th. These are all Earth directed. Some of these are almost full halos. A couple of them were partials. Again, the problem here is that we are still experiencing weak magnetosphere, okay? And Earth is not happy about these 16 to 17 eruptions Earth facing. Now, I've talked about this. The green is where the stronger magnetic connection is, and the blue is where the weaker connection is. And as you see right now, this orbit is very peculiar. Definitely need to watch seismic activity, all kinds of stuff, folks. Just a very, very unusual formation here. So this has to have some bearing on the strength of the magnetic field. The connection is all over here, guys. Earth is by itself at this point. We have a weaker magnetosphere, and we have about 16 CMEs heading our way. Now, this does not mean that we are going to start the Carrington event. That's not what I'm going with. But this should be some interesting space weather to affect Earth over the next several days. And I'm saying probably all the way through April 2nd, April 3rd is when we will see the possibility of this space weather dying down and stop affecting here Earth's magnetosphere. So with that being said, folks, today's broadcast is more of a warning. Be prepared, be aware. We are going to be experiencing some decent amount of space weather in a short period of time, starting on the 31st and extending all the way down to the 2nd of April, possibly. With this many CMEs affecting Earth's magnetosphere, and let's say that out of the 6 CMEs that were M-class yesterday, we get smacked with 3 of them within 24 hours. We're used to seeing one hit, but we're seeing multiple CMEs. We're seeing multiple solar flares. Let's go ahead and look at the stats on the solar flares at this time. Is that here? I don't even know my own stuff. Here we go. As you can see, the solar proton flux jumped up big time. Not reflecting what we're seeing right now. There is one of the M-class flares, and that was late yesterday. Here's another M-class. So let me get the handy-dandy arrow out. So here are the M-class solar flares. This one's kissing the M1 region. This one is being counted as well. This one is an M-class. There's 3. Actually, there's 4. And then we have these several little ones here that touch the M-class barely, but nonetheless, that's 4, 5. Here's the 6th one. That was the strongest, and that was yesterday's. So clearly, the strongest of these solar flares have happened yesterday, and we haven't seen anything peak above that. In fact, you can see the trend that it is not going, well, it's not going up. Let's just say that right now. So activity on the sun still remains active and will for quite some time, and especially since we have so many sunspots looking at us right now. But the one thing I want to watch too is not only are we dealing with space weather, but this particular orbit right now that we're dealing with, okay? With the geomagnetic storms that are heading this way, with the CMEs and the highly charged particles and increased solar winds and the amount of cosmic rays that are going to be penetrating Earth's core, this has to be an interesting time to be monitoring everything that relates to solar activity. Climate, earthquakes, and volcano eruptions. And some of these events could trigger some nasty storms. So, lots to keep our eyes on here over the next several days, with a lot of space weather to deal with, multiple CMEs affecting Earth. The seismic activity has been kind of moderate lately. It's not been crazy, but it's been moderate. And I can only suspect over the next 3 days or so that we will begin to see seismic activity picking up all over the world, not just in PNG, but all over the world. With this many CMEs back to back to back, there's just no way that no corner will be missed when it comes to 6.2, 6.3 earthquakes or higher. You're going to see them in PNG. You're going to see them in Guatemala. You're going to see them off the coast of Alaska. We're probably going to see one near Japan again. So with the KP at 2 right now, solar winds are low, and we have multiple CMEs heading this way. We are on the weaker side of the sun's connection. Again, I'm thankful it's not an X-class flare. And speaking of that, I wanted to show you guys, and most of you that follow this channel, you understand what this means. Others will downplay this, but right now we are at a 35% chance of an M-class solar flare in the next 24 hours. Now the good news is that chance decreases tomorrow down to 30% for an M-class, but there is a 10% chance today. So this is significant. Usually we don't see chances for X-classes past 1%. That's the average every day. If it jumps up to 5, that's even significant as well. Seeing an X-class chance in the next 24 hours at 10% is saying that they are not taking this particular sunspot, AR 2975, lightly. In fact, AR 2976 is not much better, if you ask me, than what we're looking at with AR 2975. So the reason why the chances over the next 24 hours are up for X-class flares is that we have two ginormous sunspots staring right at us right now, firing CMEs at C-class and M-class. The good news is that it looks like that things are weakening a bit. But again, with the Earth's magnetosphere already weak, and now where we are in the orbital position, and that makes the magnetosphere even more weaker. So it'll be interesting to see how the Earth deals with these incoming CMEs these next few days with the solar storms. G2 is nothing, no big deal, guys. I'm not trying to sow the Carrington event or anything like that into your mind. I'm just saying multiple CMEs smacking our magnetosphere. I wouldn't be shocked to see some strong earthquakes or maybe even a few volcanoes pop off. You know, I've always referred to CME smacking into the magnetosphere like someone throwing a bowling ball at the Liberty Bell. I mean, that's kind of the same thing. Each time we get hit with a thicker density of plasma cloud, it rings it a little bit harder. So the fact that we're going to continue to see our magnetosphere bombarded by at least several CMEs, not all 16 or 17 will hit, but there is a good chance that multiple 3, 4, 5 in the next 24 hours begin to start affecting Earth's magnetosphere. And then, of course, by the 31st is when the bigger M-class flares are expected to impact Earth's magnetosphere. And the way these are spread out, right now, it's going to be a very active 24 to 36 hours once these CMEs start arriving, starting from here. And yes, we do see a gradual decline, an increase, a plateauing, shall we say, huge drop, and then kind of plateauing where we left off before the drop. So there's no indication at this time that we are going to see a much stronger solar flare. And that's why it's still surprising to see the percentage chance for an X-class so big, especially when the data is showing that it is declining. But they're still concerned that these two behemoth sunspots are capable of producing possibly an Earth-directed X-class flare. And, you know, anything X1, X2, X5, you know, that's nothing crazy. But you start getting in the 20s and 30s and 40s, and, you know, that's something to watch. So we'll continue to monitor this situation. Again, I'm not saying that we need to be aware for something like that, but it is interesting to see that we are looking at solar flare chances continuing today for X-class and also for M-class. Obviously, more M-class flares expected than the X-class, which is a good thing. Like I said, we are experiencing a very weak magnetosphere, and X-class flares are best defended on during solar max, not during solar minimum conditions. And right now, the magnetosphere is already weak, weaker than what it should be at this point in the solar cycle. Also, I'm probably going to try to do another report either tonight or tomorrow, and I wanted to go over some information about where we are right now in this solar cycle and the grand solar minimum and the big picture of things. In fact, solar activity has declined faster than it ever has in the last 10,000 years. So that's quite a drop in solar activity, and for that fact to be known right now, it's not being talked about enough. And this was written back in 2018, so it's going to be interesting to revisit some of these things, and we will be able to compare current events to some of the things that this article was talking about back in 2018. That's going to do it for our morning report on the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Again, we are watching multiple CMEs coming towards Earth. Nothing catastrophic, nothing huge, but it will impact us seismically. I do believe that. And we could see a pretty a good amount of strong earthquakes, possibly even a bigger volcano popping off. Again, I'm not predicting any kind of catastrophic events, but when you get bombarded this many times in one sitting, you need to keep the awareness going for the time being. All right, if there's any more breaking news today, Mari will jump in live and do a report. Right now, we plan on, like I said, doing a report either tonight or tomorrow and give you more updates on these incoming CMEs. Until later on, we hope everyone has a great day. Say hello to a few folks out there. Mr. Boston, good to see you out there. Mari, of course, my lovely wife in the chat. Good to have you, always fighting the good fight. Arnold Schmidt, nice to see you, my friend. Matthew McDonald, follower of mine from Twitter. Nice to have you as well. And many, many, many others. Jerome, all my regular mods are probably like, geez, Jake, way to throw a curveball in the middle of the morning. But I had to. I had to talk about this today, and I think it was definitely, I'd be doing a disservice to our Patreon members for sure if I did not report today and talk about the possibilities of what's coming. And that's what you guys join this channel for, is to know the information, be aware, and be prepared about the coming events in the future. All right, guys, have a great day, and we will talk soon. Take care.